Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel Stuck in the Mud. I am Kirsty and today I want to be talking a little bit more about detached mindfulness, which is part of metacognitive therapy. And it's really something I have found so useful for my OCD and also my GAD, which is generalized anxiety disorder, because these things can often coexist together. And I found it super helpful in that it's a whole different approach to our thoughts and our feelings, and it's just being aware of them. I talk a lot about this in my videos, about just being aware of the thought, being there and doing nothing with it. And it just sounds so overly simple, and I think many of you might be thinking, well, what do I do with these thoughts? So, how do we just let them be there? And it really takes some practice, I'll be honest, and it can take a while to kind of get to grips with just coexisting with our thoughts and feelings and just letting them be there without any involvement. And the more and more you do that, the easier it gets. But there is some approaches to it that make it easier to kind of bridge that gap between, being aware of the thought, being there, and then not getting involved. So I wanted to talk a bit more about that today with some useful exercises that I think you will find really useful. The thing with thoughts is we can be aware of them and do nothing with it. So any ruminations or worry or obsessive thoughts, we can coexist with them, not answer them and not push them away, because that is really important, is we don't try and get rid of them. And this is not to be used as any kind of thought control. It also shouldn't be used as a way of getting rid of uncomfortable feelings, because as we know, with a lot of negative thoughts and obsessional thoughts, they can be really, really uncomfortable, and it's not nice, the feelings that come along with those sometimes. So the thing with negative thoughts and feelings is it can trigger overthinking within us, and that can then lead to anxiety and depression, obsessional thinking and behavior. So this is really a different way of approaching that altogether. And I have found a lot of success with this. I have also incorporated exposure and response prevention within my healing journey, just because it does help me out sometimes. I do kind of let myself be exposed to certain things, and that is something personally I find really helpful. But these things have come at different stages along that journey, because when I was focused on the detached mindfulness, that was really all I was doing. But I was also aware of some elements of exposure and response prevention, which I have also used. And I think that's more of a personal thing, the things that I have personally found really helpful. And like I say, I've suffered with this for, coming up to 40 years, on and off. But it's always been there in the background. But over the years, I suppose I've tailored it to what I need, and that has become such a personal thing for me. But as I have followed different strategies for coping with my obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety, I have stuck to the different therapy at that time, because I think that's also important, that we stick to what we're doing, especially if we're new to these things and we just focus on the one thing each time. So I wanted to delve into some of the practices that can kind of bridge that gap between being aware of the thought and not getting involved with it, because that can just seem overly simple. And I get it, because I also thought this. But then I was introduced to some techniques that really helped kind of bridge that gap. So what I mean by that is, so we have an intrusive thought, a negative thought, and we can be aware of it entering our minds, and we can kind of feel it there, but we don't have to latch onto it. And there's different ways you can approach this. I'll give you some of the examples of the ones I have found useful. So it is being aware of the thought like a cloud in the sky. So you can imagine a blue sky with lovely white fluffy clouds passing. Maybe your intrusive thought is right there on the cloud, or maybe you've got all different ones going on, all different intrusive thoughts. And we can let those clouds pass through the sky without latching onto them. We can just kind of be aware of them in our minds, and they're just kind of floating. And I have found that really helpful, especially in the beginning when I was doing metacognitive therapy, because it's difficult to know how we're supposed to just let them be there. But once you kind of find like a little technique that can help you, it suddenly became a lot easier. So that is one example. Another example would be the toddler having a tantrum. That has been really useful to me because I've got children. I know what that's like. They can be having a real big toddler tantrum, screaming, and we don't have to react to that. We can be aware of the child screaming at us and having that, acting out and having a toddler tantrum, but we don't have to involve ourselves in it. We can, just be like, okay, yeah, having a tantrum right here, but I don't have to kind of get involved. And you don't have to respond to it, because that isn't always helpful with the toddler anyway. They're acting out, they're having a tantrum, and it just needs to burn itself out, isn't it? So the same with the thought, it'll burn itself out because we're not giving it the attention it's craving. And another technique would be the ringing phone. So the house phone will be ringing. You can imagine your house or your cell phone ringing, and it'd be ringing, ringing, ringing. You don't have to pick it up. You don't need to know what's on the other end. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to latch on to whatever's going on at the other end of that phone. It's ringing. You don't have to answer it. And I often found that quite helpful as well. I've used different ones at different times, because sometimes I'd find the toddler one really helpful, and other times it'd be a different one, a different scenario. But they're all kind of the same thing. We don't have to react to it. It's just maybe a little helpful exercise to help you kind of, as you're getting used to just letting the thoughts be there. Another one I heard of recently was a beach ball. You can imagine yourself at the beach. You've got your beach ball under your arm, which is your intrusive thought that you're maybe carrying along, those negative thoughts. And you don't do anything with the beach ball. You just carry it around under your arm. You don't try and push it under the water. You don't try and throw it over the other side of the beach, to get rid of it. You just let it be there with you. I found that one really quite fun, and it was nice to kind of think of a beach and, and just be okay with carrying that beach ball around with me, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't say anything about you having these negative thoughts or intrusions, whatever they may be, because they can be really scary. I've had many, many different intrusive thoughts over the years. And that I found these techniques, I just found a little bit easier, especially in the initial stages when I was getting used to this kind of therapy. There's also different ones, you might find some more if you research more into this. And there's another one where you're at a train station, you see trains passing by. They can open the doors, but you don't have to get on the train. You can just stand there as the day goes by and just watch those trains coming along, doors opening, closing, but you don't have to get on. You don't have to latch onto the thought. It's just that kind of similarity there. So you don't have to do that. You can just sit back away from it and just let those thoughts happen. And it does take a bit of practice, but the more and more I did this, and I didn't even have to use these in the end, I just kind of be okay with letting the thoughts be there. And that is the big step, is just being okay with the thoughts being there, not pushing them away, because that is just a recipe for, more of them, and multiplying the thoughts, because what happens generally is once we latch onto a thought, then it'll go off to all kinds of different thoughts. It'll move around a lot, and you'll start ruminating and questioning and just worrying and really involving yourself. And that is where it all kind of spider webs out, and you're deep down that rabbit hole. You're involving yourself with the thoughts. So it's just really about stopping it further up and just intercepting it with, I can let that coexist in my mind, and I don't have to do anything about it. And it's okay. It doesn't say anything about me. I'm okay. And just being and I always say this, is being very kind to yourself, because it's something I have often felt that I haven't been over the years. I've been frustrated, and all these things, they kind of just counteract what we're trying to do, all those negative emotions, and it's okay. And just because you've had that doesn't mean that's it, it's not working. You can get back on again. Just being kind with yourself. If you find yourself that you're getting involved, as I have done many times, and just being a bit more aware of it, you'll get more aware of it as well as time goes on, and just being okay that the thoughts are there. It's just having that awareness, that kind of relaxed kind of state, like, yeah, there it is, just passing by on that cloud, or anything, or any of those scenarios, but it really does help. And I really enjoyed this kind of therapy because it really is important to stress that these thoughts are okay. They're okay to be there, whatever they may be. They can be really uncomfortable, scary thoughts of whatever nature, violent, sexual, anything, anything that you can think of. And it doesn't mean you want them there. It doesn't mean you're going to act on them. It doesn't mean it's an urge or anything. And I think that was a big breakthrough moment for me, is that these thoughts are okay to be there. And, as human beings, we have that negative bias. And I think as OCD sufferers, we tend to be very, very sensitive, and OCD will often latch onto the things that you care about the most. And having those thoughts there and feelings, it doesn't mean that you want to act on them. They're unwanted thoughts and feelings. And then OCD is so tricky because it'll say, well, do you secretly want these thoughts and feelings? And no, that is just OCD playing another trick on you. So I just wanted to stress that, because I think there's a lot of self-help out there today, especially online, and they often talk about, changing negative thoughts for happy thoughts, and it's so unhelpful, and there's so much out there now, and it really, I get really sad that this kind of information is out, and they don't consider that people are having a really tough time with this, and it's really distressing. It's debilitating when you have these intrusive thoughts, and for someone to then turn around and say, well, just stop thinking about it, or just change it for a nice positive sunny thought. And no, we've got to coexist with them. We've got to let them be there, because the more we do that, the more they won't bother us, and you will barely notice them coming into your awareness, because you're okay with them being there. It's fine. It doesn't say anything about you, and it's not wrong to have them to be there. It's fine. It's absolutely fine for them to be there. So just coexisting with them and not getting involved. And like I say, as much as these forums and things online will like to push the fact that we should switch out our thoughts from negative, it's almost like saying no. And this is what frustrates me with these, and I'm sure their intentions are good, but it's almost saying that it's not right to have negative thoughts. And that is really a bad message to put out there. It's not a helpful message. We all get negative thoughts, and it's okay to have negative thoughts. It's almost saying, these online places that it's self-help, it's not okay that they're there, and it is. And we should be okay with any thought. It doesn't matter, the nature of it, because some are going to be negative, some are going to be more positive, but we have to be okay having those thoughts. There's nothing wrong with having negative thoughts. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just they become a problem when we latch onto them and we start questioning them. And it's okay. We don't want them there. It's an unwanted thought. That's the thing. But it's okay that it's there, and we have to have that relaxed awareness that it's okay to coexist with us, with any thought. Any thought's okay. So I'm really hoping these little exercises might help you. And it's also important to let you know that you can practice this out as well. You can bring on a negative thought in your head. This is what my therapist always did with me, was say, I'm going to leave the room. I want to ask you to bring on a negative thought and just let it be there. Let it kind of coexist in your mind, and use a technique if that would help you, kind of bridge that gap for being aware of it and just letting it be there. So that was super useful. So these are exercises you can try at home as well. I just remembered another one that I used to use a lot, and that was imagining my thought on, say, like a window, and you kind of almost look through the thought. And I found that super helpful. I used that for quite a long time, and I'd almost forgotten that one there. But yeah, that was also really useful. It's just kind of almost looking through the thought, and it's just being relaxed about it being there, and just knowing it's okay. And let me say, it's going to feel uncomfortable at first, and you might get some kind of uncomfortable physical sensations, but we've got to let them be there as well. And it might feel a bit uncomfortable at first doing this, but it is possible to get better using this metacognitive therapy, detached mindfulness, because let me tell you, I've been some really, really dark places with my OCD and anxiety, and this really pulled me out of it a number of times, when I've really hit those low points, when maybe I've been going through something in my life that's been really stressful, and these big upheavals that we go through in life, and it has really helped me with just simple worries that may crop up into my awareness. And nothing gets solved by worrying over something, so just kind of leaving it there and letting it be there without latching on. Also, with detached mindfulness, you can postpone worry and rumination, and this was a really good technique to use for me, because I would often be aware of the thought entering my mind and it being there. And with this, we tend to just let it be there, and we can say to ourselves, it's okay, I know you're there, but I'm not gonna get involved with you now. I'm gonna postpone that till later. And you can have a set time later where you give yourself like 15-20 minutes to worry or ruminate. But usually when you get to that time, you will find that you do the same again. It's okay, I'll leave you till later. And then it kind of fizzles out. You don't end up using that time to worry or ruminate, because you've just kind of like done the same thing again and just thought, well, okay, I know you're there. It's okay, I'll spend some time on you later. And then just do the same thing again when it arises, and postpone the worry and rumination. So that was really helpful too. And I think it's so important to kind of say again, this is not a way of getting rid of the thoughts or uncomfortable feelings. It's just about not grabbing onto them, not getting involved. And it's just a passing event in the mind. The negative thought, the rumination, the worry, it's just a passing event in the mind, and we don't have to latch on. And that was a real breakthrough moment for me as well, because we're not our thoughts, we're so much more than that. And I hope this video has given you some really useful strategies today, so it will help you not engage with those thoughts and let them be there, because you deserve to live that fulfilling life, the one that maybe OCD and anxiety, you feel like it's robbed you of. It takes up so much of our time, and all these hours and days lost to OCD and anxiety and the compulsions and the things we engage in, the overthinking. And, you deserve so much more than that. And I really hope this helped you today. So please let me know in the comments if you've tried this or you're thinking of trying it, and let me know how you're getting on. I'd really love to hear about that. So thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.